communicate on. Well, let's get some analysis now on what's being said in today's second day of these hearings. Mikolaj Barczentewicz is from Surrey University, a legal expert there, and also is with the centre-right think tank, the Policy Exchange. And we also have Dr. Joelle Grogan from Middlesex University, a senior lecturer in law there. Mikolaj, first of all, do you buy this line that Sir James Eadie is pushing, that this isn't a matter for the courts to decide? So in effect, we shouldn't really be here.
I think he is 100% right. He is an extremely good advocate and the law is on his side. So you can see that he is doing very well this morning. And his major point that it would bring political controversy into the courtroom if the court decided that they have the power to say how long a prorogation should be, what should happen to bills in Parliament but not yet passed. These are not things for the courts, and James Eadie is right that the court should leave this aside.
And Joelle, this is the crux of the argument in some ways. What do you think about what's been argued and what Mikolaj just said?
So this is the strongest argument of government. It's reaching back to two very important ideas. First, exactly as just been said, that this is so political, the Supreme Court shouldn't be involved. But also this goes to the separation of powers, that idea that Parliament is for Parliament, government is for government, and the courts should not be involved. But what we're seeing, especially from Lord Kerr, in the questions that he's giving to government, and
one of the 11 judges, yes.
Exactly. So one of the 11 judges, the push that he's giving to Lord Kerr is, well, isn't it for the court to decide what that separation of powers is? And aren't there fundamental principles, fundamental rights that determine and limit the scope of those powers? So, interesting argument.
Yeah, and it was interesting, Lord Kerr, one of the 11 judges, did say to Sir James, well, what, hypothetically, if there was a decision to prorogue Parliament for a year? And Sir James just said, oh, well, you know, that would be an extreme example.
Yes. Well, there are two safety valves here. So one is the Queen could refuse to prorogue Parliament in such a situation. But ultimately, I think what is more important is that it is such an unlikely scenario, given that the government depends on the leadership of their party and on the leadership of the House of Commons, and if they tried to do something like that, the government would fall. It's just not a scenario we should be worrying about. And if that really happens, this would mean a constitutional crisis of such a magnitude that the courts will not save us.
But is this something for the Supreme Court to decide? I mean, Sir James Eadie was saying that the decision to suspend Parliament is shot through with politics. It is quintessentially political. But even so, Lady Hell, presiding here, said yesterday that this was a serious and very difficult legal issue, and this was the sort of issue that the Supreme Court is here to decide upon.
Exactly. The Supreme Court are looking not only now into this case, but deciding for the future. I think they might wonder if it's an almost dangerous precedent to say that there are some powers that have no limits, that there are some powers that can be applied at any time for any reason, and the Supreme Court has said that's okay.
And partly this is because we have this unwritten constitution, and it's partly about the separation of powers, isn't it? And the role of the judiciary and the role of the courts in our constitution.
Exactly. This is again why we saw Lord Kerr, one of the judges, saying, well, isn't it for the court to decide and almost to protect Parliament, to protect and uphold parliamentary sovereignty? Isn't that one of the driving principles under our whole legal system?
Fascinating to watch as it unfolds throughout the day. Mikolaj and Joelle, thank you very much indeed for being with us. So this is day